Greetings everyone, my name is Cindy Chapman and joining me via teleconference is Terri Kirkland, Director of Financial Solutions for Vital Spring Technologies. Terri Kirkland is a business leader specializing in healthcare financials and controls and is the contributing subject matter expert for Integrity, our finance product. As a controller, project vendor manager, consultant, and auditor with CPA certification, Terri brings a vast array of expertise regarding management of medical, dental, disability, and life insurance benefits. She has proven ability to manage multi-million-dollar budget in healthcare spend within 1 to 2% of plan. And I want to thank Terri for joining me in support of today's topic, where we explore navigation of the Bermuda Triangle of claims lag. Terri, thanks for joining me today.
My pleasure, Cindy.
An analogy that pits the claims lag triangle against the Bermuda Triangle may seem a bit dramatic, but for many organizations, the level of confusion surrounding IBNR and reserve estimates is on par with being lost in the Bermuda Triangle. In this event, we'll discuss a reserve study where Vital Spring Integrity successfully realigned a client's IBNR compass and more accurately targeted their reserve calculation. We will then present a theoretical animation of how reserve calculations are studied in Integrity. Now, before we do that, I'd like to have Terri frame up this topic in terms of her background and experience from a large self-insured population. Terri, can you help me out?
Absolutely, Cindy. You know, there are two avenues for actually determining the reserve estimates, either internally or externally. In my particular experience, I was working internally to acquire the reserve estimates from the claims administrators. And that was specific to my role as a point person for Sarbanes-Oxley. Now, what I found upon actually discussing the reserve estimate with the claims administrators was that they had provided their book of business instead of company-specific reserve estimate. And you know, ultimately, we did acquire company-specific reserve estimate data, and we were able to use the claims lag to set the reserves. However, these efforts were ultimately limited by the claims data that was available. It was also limited by the fact that we could only assess one method, the claims lag method. We did have multiple plans, and therefore, the lack of automation around this effort was really quite inefficient. Since the reserves usually do run between 8 and 12% of annual spend and can actually be as high as 15%, the actual reserve estimate or work is really quite important, and being as close as possible is also of real importance. A 1 or 2 point difference in a reserve calculation against $100 million in spend is $1 to $2 million. And using prior average salaries that I had worked with, even a $1 million difference can equate to 20 FTEs. And clearly, if you're looking at a 2 point difference, you're looking at 40 FTE equivalent. And when you start talking about a 2 point difference against $200 million in self-insured spend, you're looking at 80 FTEs. And it's just to provide another perspective in terms of the so what factor, in terms of what difference does it make. And in this day and age, when so many are struggling with limited resources and constraints to support the enterprise initiatives and objectives, the idea of setting aside too much funds that could be more appropriately aligned for resources that are needed is really terribly important to ensure that the resources are allocated appropriately. Thanks so much, Cindy.
Thank you, Terri. We at Vital Spring feel fortunate to have a person of Terri's caliber and experience to help frame and explain the relevance and importance of topics like IBNR and reserves. Let's push on with a brief reminder about what Evolve represents and then jump into our case study. The Evolve model is a paradigm we follow to illustrate how Vital Spring clients move along a spectrum of performance to become high-performing organizations. This event was initially offered to our client community of evolving organizations and is being rebroadcast as a recorded offering. At Vital Spring Technologies, we work with entrepreneurial organizations and companies seeking new approaches to healthcare challenges. Our client service staff will then scope out a path to step a client through data validation and new opportunities for optimization and ROI. As we progress along that path, we'll identify findings to help you leverage and improve your negotiation stance with medical vendors and PBMs. Then ultimately, you'll step into greater visibility and achieve the excellence of a high-performing organization when the tactics you employ are cited by peer organizations and industry leaders as best practice and forward-thinking. Now, as we jump into the case study, let me encourage each of you to follow up with your Vital Spring representative for additional details. What you're about to hear is specific to this client's story, and your results may vary. On this slide, what you see are a few bullet points that are representative of adjustments made for a reserve projection. These assumptions were based on industry standards, and it is not specific. It's not until you can really look at 100% of your actual claims data and get a more accurate projection that you can really achieve the results that you'll hear about from this particular client. From here, I want to ask Terri to reveal the results of the Vital Spring Reserve Study and then to frame those results up for us. Terri, I'm going to turn the mic over to you.
Thanks so much, Cindy. You know, being able to actually access 100% of the claims experience really reduced the variability of using industry standards, which did not most and best mirror the actual experience. For this particular client, that resulted in a 3-point difference in the reserve estimate. And once again, for $100 million in annual spend, that was an equivalent of 60 FTEs. You know, this particular client actually had engaged an external firm to set the reserve estimate, and the professional fees associated with that effort neared the six-figure amount, if you will, for annual spend. And what they were able to do was work with their outside firm and review the actual Vital Spring integrity solution and gain the approval and buy-in of the process and substantially decreased the professional fees for the effort. So the involvement really was limited to the review and approval of the reserve estimate as opposed to the intensive effort and man hours involved in actually setting the estimate. And what that did really was allow the client the opportunity to leverage these particular consulting dollars for other benefit initiatives that were more strategic in nature. In addition, they were actually able to begin preparing the reserve estimates on a monthly basis as opposed to the quarterly basis they had been performed on before. They also reviewed and gained acceptance of this approach with internal and external audit, and that supported the external audit firm requirements in terms of their audit efforts specific to the financial statements, and it also satisfied internal audit in addition to Sarbanes-Oxley business unit controls. I guess the flip side of this scenario, if you will, or this case study, was that it could have just as well, the reserve study, it could have just as well indicated that an increase in the reserve might have been appropriate and would have provided insight in terms of additional growth or trend, if you will, specific to the reserves that might have been appropriate and was in the pipeline. And that's really important, too, as it relates to earnings per share estimates and corresponding results. It also is very indicative of supporting the rate setting process as well as the contribution setting process for employees. In addition, I think it's a fabulous solution to supporting the financial planning and objectives around healthcare financials, and likewise align with strategic initiatives and efforts an organization might have underway. So a fabulous opportunity to really best assess and estimate a reserve calculation for your healthcare financials. Thanks so much, Cindy.
Thank you, Terri. You know, this story really is a great illustration of how the accuracy of estimates could affect overall earnings report. Moreover, I think it's important to point out, to my knowledge, there's no other tool in the marketplace that can use a client's claims data to achieve the same confidence intervals that Vital Spring is able to attain. So let's take a look at an animation that depicts the results that, like what Terri just described, how those are achieved using Vital Spring Integrity. And remember, this is to help recalibrate your compass and navigate out of that Bermuda claims lag triangle situation. I need to explain, to the extent that past performance can be used as a predictor of future events, Vital Spring can study incurred but not reported IBNR history and project future reserve calculation based on a study of 100% claims. We can report your claims data in the form of estimates. The three methods that we use are all validated and endorsed by the American Society of Actuaries. The periods you select to study can be months, quarters, or years. We plot your claims history for several consecutive periods using each of the methods, claims lag, iterative, and earned premium. Then, for those same time periods, we take the actual historical rates. Those are the blue stars that you see appearing on your screen now. We compare all three methods with the actual historic rates, and if, by the way, this is a rarely ever if it happens that your blue stars are consistent and correlate to one method over those studied periods, we can make a reserve projection based on one method. However, more often, the methods have variance, like what you're seeing on the screen now. What we do at that point, we identify the variance and then weight two methods, dropping the third method. That provides a reserve study with greater confidence levels. Now, the details can get very complex, but what I term the 3 A's, actuaries, accountants, and auditors, respect Vital Spring methods, and they're looking for the confidence details that such a reserve study can provide. Anytime we discuss IBNR and reserves estimates, there is a tendency to get caught up in the Bermuda triangle. And you know, without an accurate compass, an IBNR tool, or reserve study such as this to point the way, it's easy to get lost. Vital Spring is here to help recalibrate your compass and help you navigate your way into a more accurate reserve projection using 100% of your claims data. I want to encourage each of you to contact Vital Spring today before you find yourself facing the mysteries of a claims lag triangle. Thank you all for joining us.